Okay. So, before I forgot to hit record, what we covered is our story this week, The 10 Sons is a Legend. And I'm going to show 3 legends today. I will also post links to them. After we've seen all 3, you will write a summary. You'll pick one of the legends and write a summary. In the summary, you need to include all the characters, the setting, and the plot. Okay? So who's in the story? Where does it take place? And what happens? Then you give kind of the summary, the intro, body, conclusion of the legend. Okay?
We're basically rewriting it, but shorter.
Yes. All right. This is your reading homework or what you're going to work on today. Because it's library day, so we all have books, and we'll have some AR time. All right? So, right now, we'll get to our first legend. And these links will all be once I hit post in your language. Hang on. I'm going to pause this because there's very little sound. All right. Did I turn this down? Yeah, no. Okay. All right. So all books are away, our heads are up, our eyes are on the whiteboard.
Although King Midas lived long ago,
I'll restart it since we did not have volume on our end.
And the Golden Touch. Once upon a time, there lived a very rich king whose name was Midas. Although King Midas lived
eyes on there.
ago,
We're not.
He was very much like some people today. He was fond of gold. He loved gold more than anything in the world. When he gazed at the gold-colored clouds of a beautiful sunset, he would wish that the clouds were real gold. If King Midas loved anything as much or more than he loved gold, it was his little daughter, who was named Marigold. When Marigold would run to meet him with a bunch of buttercups, King Midas would say, "Dear child, if these flowers were as golden as they look, then they would be worth picking." Every day, King Midas spent many hours locked away in a dark room in the basement of the palace. In this room, he stored his treasures. He would go there and carefully lock the door behind him. Then, he would take out bags of gold coins and pour the coins in piles and run his hands through them. As he did this, he would whisper to himself, "Oh, rich King Midas, what a happy man you are." But even as he said this, he felt as he was not quite as happy as he might be. For no matter how much he had, he always wanted more. One day, as King Midas was enjoying himself in his treasure room, he looked up and saw a strange young man who shone with a golden glow. King Midas knew that he had locked the door so that no one could get into the room, yet here stood this man. And so, King Midas thought the stranger must have some magic power. The stranger had a kind smile, so King Midas felt no fear. Then the stranger spoke to King Midas. "You are a rich man, King Midas," he said. Yes, I have some gold," answered King Midas, "but it is not enough." "What?" cried the stranger. "You are not satisfied?" King Midas shook his head. "What would satisfy you?" asked the stranger. King Midas imagined one gold mountain heaped on top of another and another, yet still it seemed not enough. But then a bright idea occurred to him, and he said to the shining stranger, "I wish that everything that I touch may turn to gold." The stranger smiled and said, "A golden touch? Are you quite sure you would be satisfied then?" "Yes, I would be perfectly happy and ask for nothing more, answered King Midas. Then it shall be as you wish, said the stranger. Tomorrow, at sunrise, you shall find yourself gifted with the golden touch. Then suddenly a great brightness filled the room, causing King Midas to squeeze his eyes shut, and when he opened them, the stranger was gone. The next morning, when the sun had hardly peeked into his room, King Midas jumped out of bed. He touched a chair. It turned to gold. He touched the bed and the table, and they were changed to solid gold. He rushed to put on his shoes, and they turned to gold in his hands. In great excitement, he opened the door and he ran outside to the garden. He saw many roses in full bloom. He went from bush to bush and touched each one, until every flower, every leaf, and every bud was changed to gold. Now King Midas was hungry, so he returned to the palace for his breakfast. He lifted his cup of coffee and sipped it, but the instant the liquid touched his lips, it turned to gold. He tried to take a bite of a boiled egg, but it too turned to gold. I don't quite see how I'm to get any breakfast, said King Midas. Just then, King Midas heard someone crying. He turned to see Marigold enter the room, crying as if her heart would break. In her hand, she held one of the roses that her father had changed to gold. Why, my little lady, said King Midas, what is there in this beautiful golden rose to make you cry? Dear father, Marigold answered, it is not beautiful. It is the ugliest flower that ever grew. As soon as I was dressed this morning, I ran to the garden to gather roses for you. But what do you think has happened? All the beautiful, sweet-smelling roses have been spoiled. My dear little girl, said King Midas, who hated to see his daughter sad, please don't cry. Then he bent down and kissed his child. My precious Marigold, he said, but Marigold did not answer. Alas, what had he done? The moment King Midas's lips touched Marigold's head, her sweet, rosy face turned a glittering yellow color. Little Marigold was now a golden statue. King Midas cried out, wrung his hands, and wished that he were the poorest man in the world, if only he could have his daughter back again. Then he noticed someone standing in the doorway. It was the young stranger who had appeared the day before in King Midas's treasure room. The stranger still shone with a soft glow, and he smiled as he asked the king, well, King Midas, how do you like your golden touch? I am very unhappy, said King Midas. Unhappy? Asked the stranger. But don't you have everything your heart desired? No, said King Midas. Gold is not everything, and I have lost all that my heart really cared for. Then the stranger asked King Midas, which of these two things do you think is worth the most? The golden touch or your own little Marigold? Oh, my child, my dear child, cried poor King Midas. I would not give one hair off her head, even if you gave me the power to change this whole big earth into a solid lump of gold. You are wiser than you were, King Midas, said the stranger. Go and plunge into the river that runs by the garden. The water will take away the golden touch. Then fill this pitcher with water and sprinkle everything you have touched. King Midas bowed low, and when he lifted his head, the shining stranger was gone. Then the king ran as fast as he could and jumped into the river. He filled the pitcher and ran back to the palace. The first thing he did was to sprinkle handfuls of water over the golden figure of little Marigold. The rosy color came back into her cheeks. She looked in surprise at her father, who was still throwing water on her. Father, please stop, she cried. See how you have soaked my dress? King Midas took Marigold in his arms and kissed her. Now I am truly happy, he said. My dear child, you mean more to me than all the gold in the world. The end.
So that was King Midas. So that's one.
I thought that like a folk tale since because it's kind of a lesson.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, legends have lessons as well.
On the pages of American folklore, a legion of mighty men have left the symbols of their dreams. There was Paul Bunyan's axe, John Henry's hammer, Davy Crockett's rifle, and then, quite unexpectedly, one comes upon a tin pot hat, a bag of apple seed, and a holy book. And strangely enough, these are the symbols of one of the mightiest men of all. John Chapman, a real-life pioneer. With the passing years, however, reality has given way to legend. Until today, we know this remarkable man simply as Johnny Appleseed. This is his story, told by an old settler who knew Johnny well. Listen. Well, sir, every time I see an apple blossom sky, I think of Johnny Appleseed. Of course, them clouds up there, they ain't really clouds at all. No, sir. My shucks, there wouldn't be no apple blossom sky if it weren't for the fact that Johnny... But now, hold on here. Guess I better start back to the beginning. That's when Johnny lived on a farm near Pittsburgh town. The year was 1806, or maybe therearound. Now, just to look at it, you'd say Johnny Appleseed never would make a pioneer. He was such a sawed-off, scrawny little fella. Of course, that didn't faze Johnny none. Shucks, he had his apple trees in the morning sun and the evening breeze. The Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need, the sun and rain and an apple seed. Yes, he's been good to me.
You've heard before?
I owe the Lord so much for everything I see. I'm certain if it weren't for him, there'd be no apples on this limb. He's been good to me. Oh, here am I, blue, blue sky, doing as I see, singing with my feathered friends, flying with a breeze. I wake up every day as happy as can be, because I know that with his care my apple trees they will still be there. Oh, the Lord is good to me.
Does he balance it?
Working, singing, carefree, and patient. That's how Johnny spent each day, attending to his apple tree. Lately, little Johnny here he was stirring in the air. Rumbling, rolling underneath a restless man, restless feet. So get on the wagon, roll the west, sit in a land that's new. Get on the wagon, roll the west, there's plenty of room for you. Get on the wagon, rolling west, out of the grain and low. Get on the wagon, rolling west, for you'll be left alone. The rivers may be wide, the mountains may be tall, but nothing stops the pioneer, the trail takes us all. Oh, get on the wagon.
I'm going to pause it here. If you choose to do Johnny Appleseed for your summary, do you need to sit there and summarize, then people came and sang?
No.
No. You're summarizing the story of, not what you watched. Okay? So yes, there's music to you can talk about what they were singing about, but you do not say, and then they came and sang some songs. Okay? So that doesn't affect what the legend is.
It's just.
And yes, Johnny Appleseed hang on a second, Joss. Johnny Appleseed was a real man and he planted some apples, trees. But this is the legend of him. So it's bigger. Yes, it's extremely exaggeration that he planted every single tree, which we'll get to. Yes. Okay, yes, Jocelyn, what was your question?
How long is this movie?
You'll find out. This is the longest one.
And 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Out in the place and roll, and the wagon roll, and let's go. Poor Johnny. He was no pioneer, he knows it. It was all just pretend. And them folks going west to build this nation sure made picking apples look like a plumb useless occupation. Well, sir, that's when a miracle happened. Well, what's holding you, Johnny? That's the voice. Go on. Go on out west if that's your choice. Well, sir, it was an angel. Johnny's own private guardian angel. Might look mighty queer to you and me. But you know, that's just the way John figured he'd be. Well, speak up, boy. Don't stand there gawking. Unlock your jaw and get to talking. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Why don't I go west? Because I ain't got the muscle or the breadth of chest. I'll starve the strong men who survive. I'm about the puniest feller alive. Shame to you, Johnny. You got faith, and courage, and a level head. Shucks. You see, sir, all I know is apple trees. And what's wrong with apples, if you please? You take out the finest fruit in all the land, why, shoot, man. They take the cake. Just think, Johnny, of all the things that apples make. Apple pickles, oh, so tasty apple tarts and apple tasty apple dumplings, not to mention apple sass. Yes, there's apple fritters, lightest as a land, hoping to wet their whistle and tiny apple cider.
Applesauce.
Store, buy 'em, boil 'em, bake 'em, apple pie and apple cake. Yep, you can cook 'em many ways. Oh, there's apple this and apple that, the recipes that fill your hat. Why, I could carry on like this all day. So, I used up and get it going, get them apple trees growing. There's a lot of work out there to do. There's a lot of work to do. Yes, sir. I mean, no, sir. You see, sir, I ain't got the tractor, ain't got the gear. For none of the things I'll need out there. You ain't got the... Get coming, boy, I'm ashamed of you. You got the stuff to see you through. Why, you got all the seeds you need. It's a pretty darn good weed. There ain't nothing finer than your book. Here's a mighty handy bonnet. Even got a handle on it. Turn it upside down and you can cook. So, come on, son, and get it going. Get them apple trees growing. There's a lot of work out there to do. Oh, there's a lot of work to do. Well, sir, that's how it all began. That's how Johnny, all alone, set out to meet the great unknown. It was a mighty big, fierce place. For a man
It
to
must be
face.
really good at surviving the forest.
That's all it says?
All right.
Personally, when I would, because I would just get beers or something and just be.
I feel like there's more to the story than that.
Yeah, but that was like the start of it.
That was only the start.
All right.
This sentence is grammatically correct.
It's our last one.
Oskapta, a realm of wonders, was where the Norse gods made their home.
Yeah.
There, Othin's great hall
There we go.
of Valhall towered above the mountains, and Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, anchored itself. But though their domain was magnificent, it stood undefended from the giants and trolls of Jotunheimr, who despised the gods and sought to destroy them. One day, when Thor, strongest of the gods, was off fighting these foes, a stranger appeared, riding a powerful gray horse. The visitor made the gods an astonishing offer. He would build them the greatest wall they'd ever seen, higher than any giant could climb, and stronger than any troll could break. All he asked in return was the beautiful goddess Freya's hand in marriage, along with the sun and moon from the sky. The gods balked at this request and were ready to send him away, but the trickster Loki concocted a devious plan. He told the gods they should accept the stranger's offer, but set such strict conditions that he would fail to complete the wall in time. That way, they would lose nothing, while getting most of the wall built for free. Froya didn't like this idea at all, but Othin and the other gods were convinced and came to an agreement with the builder. He would only have 1 winter to complete the wall. If any part was unfinished by the first day of summer, he would receive no payment, and he could have no help from any other people. The gods sealed the deal with solemn oaths and swore the mason would come to no harm in Oskapta. In the morning, the stranger began to dig the foundations at an astonishing speed, and at nightfall he set off towards the mountains to obtain the building stones. But it was only the next morning when they saw him returning that the gods began to worry. As agreed, no other people were helping the mason, but his horse Svadilfari was hauling a load of stones so massive it left trenches in the ground behind them. Winter came and went. The stranger kept building, Svadilfari kept hauling, and neither snow nor rain could slow their progress. With only 3 days left until summer, the wall stood high and impenetrable, with only the gate left to be built. Horrified, the gods realized that not only would they lose their fertility goddess forever, but without the sun and moon, the world would be plunged into eternal darkness. They wondered why they'd made such a foolish wager, and then remembered Loki and his terrible advice. Suddenly, Loki didn't feel so clever. All of his fellow gods threatened him with an unimaginably painful death if he didn't find some way to prevent the builder from getting his payment. So Loki promised to take care of the situation and dashed away. Outside, night had fallen, and the builder prepared to set off to retrieve the final load of stones. But just as he called Svadilfari to him, a mare appeared in the field. She was so beautiful that Svadilfari ignored his master and broke free of his reins. The mason tried to catch him, but the mare ran deep into the woods, and Svadilfari followed. The stranger was furious. He knew that the gods were behind this and confronted them, no longer as a mild-mannered mason, but in his true form, as a terrifying mountain giant. This was a big mistake. Thor had just returned to Oskapta, and now that the gods knew a giant was in their midst, they disregarded their oaths. The only payment the builder would receive, and the last thing he would ever see, was the swing of Thor's mighty hammer, Mjolnir. As they set the final stones into the wall, the gods celebrated their victory. Loki was not among them, however. Several months would pass before he finally returned, followed by a beautiful gray foal with 8 legs. The foal would grow into a magnificent steed named Sleipnir and become Odin's mount, a horse that could outrun the wind itself. But exactly where he had come from was something Loki preferred not to discuss. How did Thor get his mighty Mjolnir? Trace the legend of his hammer with this video.
Okay.
It's from Marvel took this like legend and then they made it into.
All right. So
Yeah.
I will be publishing these. You can see right here. Here are the 3 videos we watched. Just posted. All right. So figure out which one you would like to do, and I would rewatch it and kind of jot down notes, and then your summary, if you look in classwork, posted the legend summary. Oop, I must have put the wrong date on there. Oh, I did PM again instead of AM. I'm just going to edit. Get rid. And it has the Google Doc to open up. Remember, the legend summary. Okay. So any question before I let you guys go about what you're doing, not about our next meetings or anything like that. Okay. So we will meet again at 1:30 for language. Yes, Addie.
Are we supposed to turn in the summary for that?
Yes, you will turn in the summary once you're finished. Yes.
So how long do we have summary?
I would. It was do it today, so it's due tomorrow.
Also, how long is the summary?
It'll be, I'd say probably 1 to 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So go ahead, pick your legend, kind of rewatch it, and start typing out your summaries. And I will see you guys at 1:30 for language. 1:30. Bye, guys.